Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case I'm going to be answering some common questions that I keep getting very often in terms of pistol caliber carbines, what's the advantages, also answering the question how much accuracy can you actually get from one of these things. I've looked around, haven't seen a proper answer to that, so I actually went and tested it myself. And also something I get pretty often in terms of how good is a KPOS or some of these fab defense conversion kits. I think I've done videos about this before. Question I keep getting all the time on my Instagram, by the way, it's Furfal308. You'll have the link there for my Instagram below if you want to follow me there. You'll have the links also for my books, The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse, based on my experience in Argentina, and Street Survival Skills, which is more of the hands-on practical stuff in terms of self-defense, guns and such. Links there in Amazon. I'll also leave the links for some of this stuff that I'm going to be talking about here in terms of some of the optics I think make sense if you're considering getting one of these. And of course, go check in the actual link to see the proper prices, because these change all the time, so don't quote me on anything here that I'm talking about. So in terms of the carbine, which is a pretty popular thing these days, what's the advantage of it? Well, first of all, you're getting something that's going to be shooting more accurately, right? A carbine will have a stock, so you have your shoulder, cheek, hand, you have those 4 points of contact versus what's basically one, or yeah, trying to do your best, but still you're just holding on the grip, man. That's it. You're gonna be doing the same thing here. So that's gonna be giving you a lot of stability, and you're gonna be shooting easier, more accurately, at further distances or at closer distances. Just gonna be more of a nicer, tighter group. Shooting pistols, not as easy as you may think it is if you haven't been shooting a whole lot. And this is a group that I got from one of the, the previous video I showed this. This is a group that I got, and I'm kind of okay with this for typical self-defense distances. This is acceptable enough. I wish it was a lot better based on the amount of years I've been shooting, but as I explained in the previous video, if you're not practicing every week, you're going to be shooting less and less. You're going to be sucking more each passing week that you're not practicing, no matter how long you've been shooting. So without shooting in a very long time, this is my crappy group. So there's a lesson. Having said that, this thing is a nice way of cheating around that, because with this carbine, the same day I was shooting with my pistol, and I actually had a little bit of problems with it. Just Right carbine, that's the brand of this carbine here. The firing pin was not polished enough, and it was getting caught there in the bolt, so I had to polish it nicely, and now it's working properly without any problem whatsoever, perfectly well. But shooting, and unfortunately I didn't bring the target, but I can tell you that at 50 meters, of course, in my hands with this kind of ammo that day with those light conditions, 50 meters I was getting 2 and 3 inch groups basically. So at 50 meters with that carbine, I was getting them right about here, nice cluster right there, no problem whatsoever. And yeah, it is just easier, 50 meters, getting a nice tight group, keeping them here within the 9 without much effort. Sure, it's a carbine, you have more barrel length, so that's basically the advantage. You're converting, well, you're not converting anything, it's just a carbine that's shooting a pistol round, which has, it's a very well, the 9mm is a very well developed cartridge over the years, maybe one of the more, tweaked and performance enhanced calibers that you can think of because of how popular it is. So you're getting quite good ballistics out of it, especially if you're squeezing it out of a carbine like this. Not only do you have those points of contact, it's going to be making it easier to shoot, you have a longer barrel length. That longer barrel means more speed. More speed means more power, even though it's the exact same round. And it's usually going to be 100, 150 extra feet per second more, which is significant. It is a nice boost in terms of punching power that you're going to be getting out of the carbine, even though you're using the same round, exact same thing, just more barrel length to burn that powder. It's going to be more speed and more power because of that. So, and you're going to be using the same magazines, either Glock 19, Glock 17 magazines. It's just going to be the same thing that works in this. So that's a nice advantage that you're getting in it. Of course, it's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit more bulky for people that live like in small apartments. Maybe it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe you just have your handgun and that's that. But if you're living, as we've talked about before many times, if you live in the outskirts, especially flat terrain, and you're in a more isolated place, and you see or just a very large estate or house that you have, homestead, and you see the possibility of these longer ranges being involved in a potential self-defense scenario, then this is going to be giving you that nicer accuracy at those longer ranges. No doubt about that. It's going to be punching harder as well. One of the things I get asked about the K-Pos, Roni, or Fab Defense kits, how good are they? I don't have one right now, but I did own one when they first came out. It was quite expensive, and I can tell you my experience. They are okay. They're okay for what they are, which is not, you're not going to be converting, a carbine conversion for your Glock. That's the way it's promoted. It's really not, because you still have that shorter barrel length, so you're not going to be getting more power. You do get those extra points of contact, so you're going to be shooting better than with your pistol, and you may squeeze nice accuracy at 25, even 50 meters, although it's not going to be in any way at the level of the accuracy that you get with an actual carbine, with that longer barrel and maybe even better sight radius and such. So in terms of barrel length, same exact thing as with your pistol. You do have, what would be the advantages then? What would be the way, the logic behind it? Well, you're gonna be getting that stock, so at least some better accuracy is definitely in there, and it's gonna be easier to mount a red dot. But remember that it's basically a chassis that goes all over the pistol, so it's not perfectly mounted one thing on top. There's always some wiggle room, even though minimal, but it's something that is encased in something else. That is always somewhat of a poor man's solution. And I guess the advice here is to actually give you proper answers to these questions is, I would only go with that if I really don't have any other choice. If I have my Glock and I want something that resembles a carbine, and I cannot actually own a carbine because of legal restrictions or whatever limitations you may have, sure, that's going to be giving you a little bit of a boost in terms of how easy you're going to be grouping nicer with that same gun in that chassis. It's not going to be those 2-3 inches or 2 inches, depending on how good you shoot and the kind of gun you have, at 50 meters with that same thing. All right, it's just not in the nature of the system. It can be quite compact. I think mine was a Roni Fab Defense. Roni, was it? Anyway, it was something that had like a very neat little folding stock, and it was very compact, and you could unfold it. It was quite cool, and yeah, it was easier to shoot than just the pistol alone on its own, especially if you added a red dot. But it's not quite this, where you have your red dot directly mounted on a rail on the actual receiver. It's just like a sandwich waffle machine thing closing over the actual pistol. Now, in terms of red dots, here I have one of the cheapest, crappiest red dots you can have. I have two of these. I have one mounted in a automatic 12-gauge shotgun that I've shown in previous videos, and I have this one, and they're quite decent for the money. I think they go like for 20-30 bucks in Amazon, leaving the links below there, as I said, and it is okay. I mean, it's not fantastic, but it's okay enough. So this is the one I was using, and as you see there, a little tip here as well. If you don't see a perfectly rounded circle or a perfectly rounded dot, it is not likely to be the optic. It's probably your own eyes. And the way in which you can check this is with your cell phone. Use it as a camera and look through. If using your cell phone you see there a perfectly rounded dot, then it's your eyes. One more thing, maybe it's just too bright. In my case, if I'm shooting in low light, I want to dial it down a little bit, and when I dial it down, it's doing less of that starburst effect, and it becomes more of a tiny dot. Remember, it's a 2 MOA dot, so or 1 MOA dot. It has to be quite small. So if it's very small, more bright light out there, daylight, you want to maybe dial it up. It's going to be doing more of that starburst effect, but it's definitely going to be more visible. Now, having said all that, this is something you want to have for self-defense. The carbining itself, I have no problem, especially with proper backup sights. I'm okay with that. But my advice would be this: if you're using this for self-defense, where I want to have the cheapest red dot available in Amazon, Probably not. Ideally, you would go with something like this, like what I have here in my M4, which is a proper red dot. This is an aim point micro mounted on a Daniel Defense mount. This is solid, this is reliable, this is quality stuff, but it's also a lot more expensive. Just these two that you see there are gonna be going for the same price as the entire freaking 9mm carbine that I have here. So I get it that it's expensive. If you can afford it, and I know that everyone watching this will have their own financial situation, their own financial reality, that's perfect. If you cannot afford that, and you know, I completely see that, and I've been there myself and I get it. If you cannot afford that, just don't go with the cheapest crap you can get. It may work. I mean, for me, the two I have, they are working, but I would make the extra effort of going just a couple notches above this and getting maybe your Holosun, your Vortex red dots. Those are quite decent. You see the reviews are quite good for the money. It's maybe 200, 300 bucks. Again, don't quote me on that. Check the links below. But that is something I'd feel quite a bit happier about. Okay, this is something I can actually trust my life. Maybe it's not an aim point, maybe it's not my Trigicon, but it's definitely something a lot more reliable and that has passed certain quality controls, and it's good enough stuff that I would personally feel okay with trusting that for self-defense. Of course, having backup sights even better and such, but that's something I'd be happier with. Anyway, guys, again, if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. We're getting closer to that, 70K subscribers already. That's great. Thanks for everyone that has subscribed. If you haven't done so already, consider doing so. Sharing the video, thumbs up. See you on the next one. Have an awesome day. Take care.